Cheryl Edwards.
Amen.
Boy, that was good. That was good. I was set free from cocaine, nicotine, cigarettes, alcohol, from it all. Lying, stealing. If they did it, I did it. Okay. So anybody know anyone bound by addiction, there's no limits. I was walking around here 110 pounds soaking wet thinking I was fooling everybody. I was fooling nobody but me. I had an encounter with God as well. My encounter was I had burned all my bridges. I had been addicted to crack cocaine for 30 plus years. And I ended up exhausting all my resources, family, friends, whoever, and I ended up living in a crack house. And I also sold drugs to support my habit.
Amen.
Because I have a lot of yets, and having access to the drugs kept me from a lot of those yets.
Right.
And that's why I ain't going back. Because they say the progression of the disease is worse than where you left off. I can't afford progression.
Amen.
But I got set free 30 days prior to being taken out of my environment. I was living in the crack house. And my encounter was I never binged. I was functional. I could always work and get high. And I would sell drugs, and I was one of those people who would sell the drugs, and I didn't get high with people.
Right.
And I didn't get high while I was selling because I couldn't be high dealing with high people because of the chaos. And at the end of the shift, I called it, I would get my own drugs. Well, this particular weekend, I binged, and I never binged. And I had a prophetic person speak into my life, happened on the street, and told me to binge, told me where I sat, what I did, where I was, and in my room, it was the second floor. So I'm like, where were you? Meanwhile, at this particular binge, it was the 1st through the 3rd, let me back up. I had went to jail 66 days in the county for selling to the undercover agent. I sold it to you, you gave it to them, third party. Looking at 6 years, I didn't beat the case, I ended up doing 3 years probation. But in the midst of doing probation, I had learned how to use, like you see the probation officer 8 days, every 8 days. So I had learned how to use, stop in enough time that I would be clean. Well, those 8 days turned into 7 days, turned into 6 days, turned into 5 days, 4 days, and then I started getting scared. But I wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop. So in the midst of, matter of fact, I would say my probation officer was the one who God used to save my life. Because they liked me as a person, they worked with me. But when I got to that 4th day, he was like, sure, we're going to have to lock you up. You come in here dirty again. Okay? Now I'm thinking I'm hiding. I'm hiding from nobody but me. So in the midst of that, he was scheduling me for treatment, outpatient treatment. I'm telling him I'm not going. So make a long story short, as I saw that the next time I show up down here dirty, I'm going to end up in jail, I had to do something different. Still being caught up in the grip of addiction, that was not easy. So what happened was this particular binge that I was on, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, I had called a drug dealer to meet me so I can get my own personal, because I had sold out. What I did have for myself, they begged me for it. I shared it. Now, they have one more. So as I'm sitting there in my room, putting on one of my shoes, I heard a voice, an audible voice, say, if you go out of this door, you will not return alive. And I'm looking around for who's talking, and nobody's there. Come to find out, the very next day, that particular spot where I was supposed to go to meet, there was a shooting. And a person got shot. The dope dealer that I was going to meet thought I had him set up. Okay? So, that was my encounter. So, ever since that day, I was running for my life. I ended up staying in the crack house for 30 days because I couldn't go home because nobody believed me. I had burned all my resources. And then, so I went ahead and I followed through with the inpatient treatment. I went on to because I had already did recovery. It didn't work. So I took one step to Jesus, and here I am 7 years later.
Praise God.
Clean. Praise Him, I'm filled with the Holy Ghost. But I am a witness to the fact that Jesus is the only way out. He's the only way out. And if you don't deal with the root to why you use, it's just an endless circle. We can take recovery, the 12 steps, and I say call it a weed killer. You can kill the weeds on the outside, but if you don't deal with what's going on the inside, a storm comes, you're back off to the races. So,
Amen.